know we got off to probably a very bad start given that I was with Morgan and, well, you had to stab him. And I think we touched on it a little bit of, well, I didn't like seeing someone I love stabbed, of course. No one would. But he did tell me why. So I understood why you felt like you had to do what you did. I don't necessarily blame you, just so you know. Make sure that's clear. Zip told me something you'd probably be mad that he told me.
What's that?
You're having a bit of problem with morphine.
Seems to have told everyone.
That's the problem with Zip. That's why I cut him out of my life for now. He he means well. He definitely does, and I know you know that too. He has a good heart. It's just he doesn't know the boundary of keeping things to himself, what might endanger those he actually cares about by sharing information. I'm not going to judge you or lecture you. I'm just going to say I think I understand why. Because it hurts. But I wanted to share something with you that I haven't shared with anyone yet. Mm, I think because maybe it might help you in the way that it's helped me to put my thoughts down.
Damn, this is a big one. Hmm. Oh, it's not that long.
I think we're a bit alike, you and I. When I was trying to be friends with Carla, which, by the way, was a fucking mistake.
Why is that?
Well, I don't want to share his personal business, but he was going through something spiritually, and I tried to help him because I genuinely thought I saw an individual outside the family, you know? But then the other day, I asked to, well, we mutually decided to meet up. I wanted to see how he was doing because he said Sloan had put him on medication. Not only does he know how I feel about Sloan, but he decided to bring her. And although she waited far away from the conversation, it was not a conversation like we usually have, you know, a carefree conversation. It was like an interrogation. He wanted information, and when I didn't give him the answers he wanted, that he had preconceived in his head that would be true, he accused me of being disingenuous. He said he didn't believe me, and I told him I never lied to you. It's not that I give him information, to be clear. It's just that I haven't lied to him. There's no reason for him to think me to be untrustworthy. But it felt, it's like, I'm sure you've had conversations with Zip, right? Where you really connect. They're very genuine, and it's almost like you're talking from your spirit. And then you'll have other conversations where he just doesn't even seem himself. It's a different tone to the conversation. And I felt that. I called him out on that. I said, I feel like you're interrogating me and you're assuming I'm guilty because I have no information to give you or what you expect to get from me. So you're taking it as being disingenuine. And he told me if I was interrogating you, you wouldn't be just standing here. So I wrote him a letter after the conversation and I said I won't be seeking him out anymore. That I had cared about him and I had hoped to develop a friendship despite what everyone said. But it is clear that family is poison. I don't believe that they allow connections outside the family.
That's true.
They don't let you be friends. And I feel like it's poisonous, like an echo chamber. Anyway, back to you. I feel like we're alike because when I told you I was friends with Carlo, or becoming friends, or trying to help him, you mentioned you were friends with Winchester. And even
Right.
Zip said that you had friends in most groups, even if you were at war. I mean, hell, I know you're in love with Kramer, and, well, that must be really hard. I caught you two once in Wapiti. You and Kramer, that is.
Which time?
I don't know, you were by the lake with carriage sitting on the rock. I didn't listen.
Right after he got shot.
Mm. You know, I thought about reporting it because at the time I didn't like you. Then I realized something. I thought it could go two ways. One, it wasn't my business who loves another. Two, it could cause Kramer problems, and then I would be responsible for him walking a different path. And then three, I thought maybe you being in love with a lawman, you might find yourself in a better position. Maybe it would motivate you to, I suppose, choose differently for yourself.
I was thinking about it for a while.
So I didn't tell anybody, even though at the time, as a ranger, I was obligated to report those sorts of things.
The law knew.
Mm.
Told him he was just using me for information. Could
He
have been
told
the
them,
truth.
or
Yeah.
you? There's something I've noticed about lawmen, considering I tried to be friends with a couple. Mitch, or Sans, as you know him. He was the one that recruited me as a ranger, and I've spent time with him, but it's not frequent. He's dedicated to the badge. He hardly returns telegrams. When there was a shootout at Shady Bell with my brother the first time, he struck down Deputy Pruitt, and I didn't think Pruitt was going to survive. I gave him medical aid, and I knew that it was Zip that shot him down, or, well, Zip was involved at least. Pruitt's alive, and he reaches out to me occasionally, but we haven't actually had a conversation. And I've tried to be friends with a lawman named Leon.
Buckley.
Yes, but they never have time for themselves, for anyone but this this rule book. Or who they can associate with.
To be honest, I don't think Kramer even realized how strict it was till he started spending a lot of time with me.
Oh, really?
Slowly, the more we got seen together, the more complicated it became.
I don't know if you realize this, but I don't think you should get rid of what you call softness. You may think that it hurts you or those that you love. I mean, that may be true in times of war when you're meant to shoot people, really. But you have to realize that kindness is actually a strength, and you may be hard on the outside, but your spirit is much better off being kind than it is to be cruel. I think that is why you are trying to numb it, because in your heart and your spirit, it is not your path to walk of cruelty, even in times of war. It is not a weakness to let those that have hurt you walk away. In fact, I think it makes it so they can't control you. Because if you were like everyone else, and it was blood for everything, you would be consumed by it and controlled by it to the point where it would be your only priority, your only fulfillment. And I think you realize, unlike most, that at the end of the day, when you get the revenge that you so crave, it doesn't actually make you feel any better, not physically or spiritually.
It's not even revenge. Never really cared about revenge. It's more just I'm not going to let my friends get hurt in front of me. I'm going to stand by them no matter what.
What if your friends are wrong, Aurora?
Doesn't
What if,
matter. If they're wrong, I'm still going to stand beside them. The one time I didn't, my friend was killed, and I'm never going to forgive myself for that.
but were they wrong?
They were. But it doesn't matter. I'm not going to let somebody die over it.
I can
Not
understand
somebody I
that.
care about.
You know, I want to help people, but I I really can't. I don't have impact on Zip. I don't
You have more
sway any.
impact than you know.
I think that you should be aware that kindness is a strength, especially when everything around you is so unkind. And I understand wanting to protect your friends, even if they are wrong. To be honest, I very much love Zip, even though I feel that he is wrong. He is doing a disservice to his spirit. I, it doesn't make me care for him any less. Even George has a past. He called himself a monster. But I guess I don't see it.
It's not even just the softness that I started taking it for. They were
Mm,
going to ride out 5, and I knew Chenzo's had 6 because they had just shot me down.
mm.
I needed to be strong enough to fight with them if they needed me. Even if it killed me. Top of that, I don't want to feel love. I don't want to feel any of it anymore.
Why?
Because it just hurts.
But then doesn't that go against the whole reason you're fighting? You want to protect those you care and love for, but if you don't want to feel love, if you can't feel love, then what's actually motivating you, Aurora?
Well, maybe I wouldn't be in this if I didn't feel it anymore. Anybody you love always just walks away anyway. That's how life works.
I agree and disagree at the same time. I was taught that your life is like a spider web, and each thread of it is another spirit, in the sense that it'll overlap or be part of your life for a time. to teach you a lesson, good or bad, and then it'll depart. And truth be told, if you're the monogamous type when it comes to love, at the end of the day, at the end of the years, really, there's only one person you will end up with for the rest of your life. And everyone before that is simply a lesson to be learned.
I just don't think love is worth it.
Why?
You always just get left behind. It never works out. It's all just a matter of circumstance.
Do you mean just romantically or in every facet when it comes to love, friends, family?
Every facet. But it's easier to overlook things with friends.
I can see your perspective. I imagine that you feel much like I do, that you invest so much in everybody else and no one ever acknowledges it or pours back into your cup. You end up exhausted. You feel like you don't really make a difference. What does it matter? Why try? Is that how you feel?
Yeah. Even with Kramer, he never felt the same way about me that I did about him. I think he was just try to get information. Oh, he said he wasn't, but why else would he spend that much time with me?
Because despite things that you do, the trouble that you cause, your heart is good because you do hold on to that kindness. You do have a conscience and you care. I think that is a unique thing. And it's also a troublesome thing because when you're trying to fight a war and protect those you love, when you humanize the other side, it makes it much harder.
Yeah, it does.
And then you feel guilty because when you're at odds with two people you care about, you don't want either to get hurt and you don't know what to do. Then you feel guilty for being on one side or the other or not acting or acting. It's very confusing and jumbled. Morphine might numb you for now, but it doesn't take away the burden of your spirit. I think you know that too. I think that it worries me mostly because I feel that you and I both know it's a temporary thing. So that makes me think that if you're not seeking a long term journey to attempt to, suppose, heal your spirit, that you think you're going to die soon.
I think the odds of me surviving this war are pretty low. I'm the one that always gets found. I'm the one that always gets shot and tortured.
Have you ever tortured someone?
No,
Would you? Do you think you're capable of it?
I don't know.
Have you watched someone be tortured?
Nope.
Do you think you could? Would you stand by?
I was always the one that would try to, even just gruesome ways of hurting somebody, try to minimize it, try to get people out unhurt, find
Sacrifice
other
yourself?
ways. Yeah,
And then you get told you're naive or stupid.
just soft.
Have people called you that, or is that simply what you feel about yourself?
Only James has called me soft after we shot Hawk. He was gonna leave her in the desert to bleed out. I went back bandaged her wounds and left her where her friends would find her. While we were at war. Next day, they found me, forced her to shoot me.
They forced her. Did
Mm-hmm.
they put a gun to her head?
It was one of those, if you didn't do it, she was going to be kicked out.
There's always a choice.
Same
Mm,
thing they did to Sissy.
There's always a choice.
Not much
That's,
of one.
but there still is. I suppose that's why I don't understand that people find it easier to be violent and continue this wheel of violence. I mean, if people really care about each other like they say, simply saying no, I can't, I won't,
Hmm.
wouldn't that just stop this whole wheel?
Did you
Or,
know Mills shot me?
no, why did he shoot you?
While I was hanging out with Kramer a lot. One night, me and him were in a carriage. I'd been stabbed that day. I had my head on his shoulder. Alice walked up and found us. I hadn't told anybody, not even because I was doing anything wrong, but I don't know, they hadn't asked, and I
It's
was
none of their
just enjoying the
business.
time.
Yeah.
She found me. Kramer knew it was going to look bad for me. We were trying to figure it out. Then I got a telegram that she needed to meet with me. Kramer wanted to go. He wanted to hide in a bush, make sure I was okay.
And you think he doesn't care for you. Go on.
I told him he couldn't. And he said if I ended up dead that he'd lose his badge and kill Alice.
And you say he doesn't care.
And you took that back pretty quick. I met with Alice. She made me go and talk to Kramer. Tell him that we couldn't hang out anymore. To his face. She pretty much said all of it for me. I didn't really have to say anything. Then I left the next day. Sent him a telegram that I needed to talk to him. I'm not very good at people telling me what I can and can't do. So I snuck away from Alice. Rode to meet him. Talked to him for a couple hours. Told him that I couldn't keep it a secret, that I had to tell everybody. I couldn't just not see him, but I also couldn't just not tell anybody I was either.
Mm-hmm.
So on our way back, we ran into Alice again. So I went off and talked to her. She ended up saying in the end that I had to talk to Mills. It was when Mills and Alice weren't with Jack. Everybody was kind of splintered doing their separate things. So I think it was a couple days later I went. Saw Mills. He gave me two choices. I could either run off in the sunset with Kramer, or I could bring him to him and hurt him in front of him. Told him neither was an option. So he said he'd make the choice for me and shot me.
I really don't understand that resolution.
Yeah. I guess in the gang there's this thing called blood washes out dishonor.
And yet you're still there, so have you considered that Kramer did care deeply for you and he had hoped that you may have been motivated to, I suppose, turn away to be with him, to choose him, and when you didn't, you decided maybe it wasn't best to invest because then he too would walk a dark path and his spirit maybe couldn't have handled it. I, I truly do not think that it is that he did not care for you. I think he cared very much, but there are few people like you and I, Aurora, that sacrifice our own spirits for others. It is against everything that is instilled in a human to survive. And that is why it is so strong. You are working against nature to be kind.
To be honest, I was slowly distancing myself from everything. Every time everybody was riding out, I'd leave and go spend time with Kramer instead.
Did it change after Mill shot you? Is that
No,
did it change when you spoke to Kramer because Alice made you?
no, it was even after that, we still hung out quite a bit. I kept thinking that I needed to tell him I couldn't hang out with him anymore. It was gonna get me killed or him fired. Eventually, he realized it was gonna get him fired,
Mm.
so it just stopped.
It's hard to give up what you think is your purpose. I do not know much about Kramer or his background, so I cannot assume that he would value love above all things. Most men, if I'm honest, they're ambitious sorts. They see love as a distraction or as a burden. And that's why it's, I suppose, so often them that walk away or give us a choice. I do think he cared for you. And I think if you had chosen him, I think he would have chose you as well. The thing is, you couldn't continue on your path and choose him, and he continue on his and choose you. It's like oil and water. One of you would have to give up something.
The thing I kept telling him to throw rocks at me to push me away, because I knew I wasn't strong enough to do it to him. And it kind of hurt when he finally did.
What did he? What did he do?
Just sent a telegram.
Mm.
Then doesn't respond to mine either. I asked him about it one of the last times he brought me to Siska. He said that it was better off for me to not be around him anyway. That it was going to get me killed, and brought it up that he was trying to be some sort of martyr, saying he did it for me. He even admitted that it was complicating his job.
Maybe
So he
both are
got a
true.
promotion.
By
I don't know, probably using me, getting information. He says he didn't, but
did you give him information
I'm sure there's things he probably could have put together.
that you confided in him?
Not really about anything specific. Nothing that ever could get anyone arrested besides myself.
Mm.
But I did talk to him probably too much. Like, he knew we were at war and when I'd be shot. He used to make the joke that he hated Swiss cheese.
It's a poor joke.
Should have heard the one eye jokes.
Who took your eye
Dominic?
from the Chenzos?
Yeah.
Why?
Because Mills took Oliver's glass eye.
A glass eye for a real eye. Not even. So, I'm sorry. I thought it was revenge is for the person who does you wrong, not for someone associated.
To be honest, I'm the one that's paid the price out of most of it when this war started. Everybody knew it was coming into a boiling point. The DiCenzos were trying to tell us what we can and can't do, threatening if we did anything in this city.
Because it's their city.
It's their city. They wanted a piece of anything that happened there. So the ice cream heist had happened, and that kind of just
Ice cream.
kept things bubbling. Then Jack got drunk, pulled some dumb shit, shot somebody in the city. They shot Jack and Jed down right there. Could have ended right then, but instead the next day, nobody knew that had happened with Jack. He was drunk and high and was sent to Siska, didn't send anybody a message. Ran into a bunch of them, didn't think anything of it. Didn't know things had escalated. He grabbed me. The scar on my face was from before my eye. He decided to do to me what Jack had already done to one of theirs that they had already shot him over.
So it just.
Just kept going.
I don't understand. It really doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't. It was just everybody. I don't know.
You know, I'm worried about my safety now with the DiCenzos, which is ironic because I have unintentionally helped them more than I have even helped my brothers.
How's that?
I was riding through the Heartlands and I was heading to Emerald Station, and I didn't know, but at the time, I believe it was Olivia. They said she had a horse accident. I did some medical on her, helped her to her feet, and I noticed there was another man on the back of their horse unconscious and didn't recognize him. And I asked if he needed medical attention as well, and they said no. You should leave now. And so I did. Another time, I was present in the city, getting gun oil. I haven't told this besides to Zip, but I believe there was a shootout between Sam's people and the
You
Vincenzo's, and
told me of that one.
I don't know who I helped to their feet, but I do know it was a Vincenzo. And then what I did for Carlo, I came out of Sisika when I was waiting for Zip one of the times. And at the time, I saw Sam's group riding around town, the city, as well as Law. So, although I was waiting for Zip, I asked Carlo to get on my horse, which made sense at the time because the tribe had also come to me because he had shot one of Wapiti's horses. They were threatening war, and because they had come across me talking with Carlo, they wanted me to find out why he had did it. Some things were brought up. I will just say that his spirit is not well. He is not himself. I'll be honest in saying that I essentially kidnapped him. I took him to a cabin and tied him up for my own safety and his. I talked with him, not in an interrogation way, but to try and heal his spirit in some way and figure out what was going on. If he had weapons, he would have absolutely hurt me. He had an episode he was not himself and ran from the cabin, and we had a bit of a struggle as I tried to restrain him, and I
An
pushed him, and
episode where he
he
wasn't
hit his head on a
himself.
rock. When he came to back in the cabin, he was back to himself. I told him everything. I told him he was having these episodes. He couldn't even remember. I filled in the holes for him. I even offered him help at Wapiti. He said, "The family will take care of me. They will help me. Sloan is a great doctor." I tried to convince him that this is not a medical problem, it is a spiritual issue. I even said that, in my opinion, the Dichenzos do not care about the individual, especially during wartime. He is but a finger on a hand, and if he proves as a liability, they will simply cut the finger off.
Sounds about right.
He's been hidden away, so when I came back, I wanted to check on him, but he was aggressive towards me in a way, questioning everything. So I imagine while I was gone, poison words were dripped in his ear. I guess my point is, after the conversation with him, and the fact that I said I will not speak to him anymore because he questioned my honesty, and because I felt investing in him put a target on him, a target on me, and also gave neither of us fulfillment because you should trust your friends, yes? Anyway, I imagine people tend to tell their own narrative.
I don't know how much you know about Sloane.
I know enough to hate her.
She's really good at whispering, convincing people of things that maybe sometimes are true, but a lot of things that aren't. She also thinks everybody's a spy.
Probably because she has a loyalty problem.
She was the one that convinced Jack to stab Kaniklo, told him he
She,
needed to be a leader.
so she convinced him to go against his heart and spirit to prove a point.
Mm-hmm.
She calls herself a healer.
She also brags that she tore apart her last gang from the inside out.
Which gang was that?
I don't know much about him. It was one thing that a lot of people in our group didn't trust her for.
And
And then she almost did the same thing to us.
why let her in?
Jack was in love with her. She was in before me, so I didn't really know any different.
I think when I told Carlo that I would let her bleed out and I told him why, I was very honest. He said he was very close to her, as well as I think he asked me, "Do you know what happened between her and Jack?" He said that there's something in the Bastille, and she was trying to get in the middle, stop them from fighting, and that she was shot.
Jack wasn't even there.
They like to leave out details, I suppose.
I feel like everybody sort of leaves things out to make their sides look better. Not very many
Hmm.
people just stick to the truth.
Well, I stick to the truth. But at times, some details get forgotten because
Hmm.
when I'm asked a question, I don't think something is relevant at the time, but then all of a sudden it's a huge deal.
I know what you mean.
It's like, oh, you hid this from us? It's like, well, not intentionally. That wasn't the question, and I didn't know it was relevant to what you were asking.
Why did Carlo kidnap Zoe Winters?
He was having an episode.
You know he carved her name into some barns.
I do. I told him I was going to report it, but I don't think the law has the compassion to deal with things that are when the spirit is broken,
Now they just want to punish.
hmm which just continues this circle of anger. So, yes, I very much tried to help him, and how quickly, after everything, he was so quick to disbelieve me. You know what he didn't believe me about?
What's that?
Jabaz was the one that tortured Carlo, which made his spirit break. He got a hand carved into his chest.
I know.
And I had brought up that I felt that I was. I brought up that I was confiding and I wasn't getting along with Zip. I said that Zip says things that endanger me. He asked what he said, and I said, well, Zip told Jabaz that I was best friends with you, which Carlo reacted very poorly to. He immediately started asking questions about Jabaz. Why were you with him? What did he say? What did you say? And when I said the truth of Jabaz didn't say anything, he couldn't get a word in because my brother and I, we argue quite passionately. And I said the only thing Jabaz said in regards to me being friends with you when my brother brought it up was when I was walking off angrily from Zip. He said, you have family and they love you. And sometimes they may disappoint you, but you should never leave angry because you never know if you might see them again. And that is all he said. And when I told Carlo this, he bluntly told me he didn't believe me. He said, Jabaz wouldn't simply not say anything about me. He asked if Jabaz threatened me. I said, no. He was kind to me. And then he asked if he basically insinuated that I had an alliance with the Jabaz and just didn't believe that Jabaz wouldn't say or brag about what he did to Carlo.
Do you know
What
why
he,
he believes that?
why?
Because DiCenzo's would have never let somebody walk without interrogating him.
Mm.
They would have taken him, got every piece of information they could out of him if they knew they had any association.
And Carlo tried to convince me that Jabaz was the same, that there was no way that you would simply let it go. But I really don't think Jabaz cares that much about Carlo.
He doesn't.
And when I told Jabaz then I had no affiliation and that I wasn't in the war and that I honestly just wanted it to stop, he was okay with that. I even reached out to him through Telegram and said if he needed medical aid, that I would come to him, but not to expect me to pick a side. But I would also not give information of locations, things like that, to anyone, whether it's law or otherwise. I simply don't want anyone to die. He seemed to understand that, but I don't think the DiCenzos really do.
They don't.
It's funny though. they try and condemn Jack in the sense of they say he hurt Sloane because Sloane chose to treat his supposed enemies even though he
By
loved her.
hurting, he kicked her away until said she couldn't be around while the war was happening.
Hmm.
Didn't physically put anything on her until long after she chose her side. First time I think she was hurt was in the Bastille when.
She got in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Carlo kept saying over and over again that I was a lot like Sloane. I find it. I don't know her well. Maybe he knows her better. But you spent time with her. I don't think I'm like her at all.
No, I don't think you're playing the sides. I think you're being honest. And for yourself, not. I don't know. I guess she was doing it for herself, but trying to set herself up no matter what happened.
Be on the
But
winning
it's.
side.
Yeah, it's just your own morals, I feel like, is the reason you're doing it.
Hmm. Love is a very complicated thing. Caring about people is very hard. And it's so discouraging. You don't know how many times I have cried after talking with Zip or Ollie, or even feeling like I pour myself into someone and they just spill the cup over, not even appreciating or acknowledging it. And sometimes I think I'm like you in the sense of I just want to run away and disappear. I want to go to the mountains and not tell anyone. I just want to be by myself, but I know I can't because I will be lonely. And on the other hand, I know that if no one even notices I'm gone, even looks for me, it'll hurt even more to know that I'm not cared for. And so I guess I wanted to have this conversation because I wanted to tell you that you are cared for. People do see you, and they do acknowledge that you are kind, even when you are forced in very unkind situations. And you are strong because you have not let the world take that from you, and you should not take it from yourself. You said earlier you don't like being told what to do. The world is telling you you can't be kind, and you can't be good because of all the terrible things that
She's so good.
happen. So don't let it tell you what to be. And for what it's worth, though we've never talked really much until now, and even though you stabbed my ex boyfriend, I do see you, and I do understand. I don't judge you for wanting to numb it. I don't judge you for wanting to protect your friends. I don't judge you for riding out. I accept that that is the path you want, the path that gives you purpose, that settles your spirit because it feels that is the one thing you can do for it, for them. But know that there's at least one person that sees. And I hope you take that to heart.
I don't know if you know what happened with me and Zip recently.
I do not.
He tied me up, brought me to a cabin.
Are
Try
you
to stop me from taking the morphine and drinking.
are you angry with him over that?
No, I get it.
I mean, I did the same thing to Carlo.
He tried
I
to
would,
get Kramer there to talk to me, but he didn't show.
hmm,
Somehow thought that would help. It ended up turning into he had telegrammed Jack and everybody that I was hurt.
Kramer or
No. Zip.
Zip said that you were hurt.
Yeah. I ended up needing to get some IV fluids and things from the doctors, but I was fine.
Mm. I suppose it depends on when you took the morphine and alcohol. IV fluids would, I suppose, distill it in your veins, but if it was still being digested, charcoal would have been the best. Tastes
Mm.
nasty, but absorbs all the toxins.
Turned into turned into I guess Jack and Zip talked for a while. Zip got scared he was getting kicked out.
Why would he get kicked out for helping you? I don't understand.
I don't know. I think just because of how complicated things would get.
Complicated.
I'm
By
not in love with Zip and he's in love with me.
mm, Zip will find his way.
Mm. It's not happening. I talked to Jack too. He tried to make a rule that there's no more relationships within the group. It has to be without. What
No fraternizing.
funniest thing is, all the relationships that have been the most fucked up are me and Kramer, him and Sloan, him and Devin.
The fuck? Excuse me?
Yeah.
Devin?
Yeah.
Devin.
Mm-hmm.
What's the draw to Devin? Okay, I kind of get Sloan because she acts very confident and has this orgasmic but condescending at the same time voice. But Devin?
He likes her voice, and she likes men with power.
Ew.
Mm. Is what it is. As long as he doesn't tell her things, it's fine.
And she
Jack
kidnapped
has
Sheriff Rabbit
terrible
yesterday.
taste. Who kidnapped Sheriff Rabbit?
Devin.
She
Devin.
did.
I fell off a mountain looking for her.
Oh my god.
She shot her down outside the medical office in Valentine, put her on the back of her horse, and rode off northwest. I thought she was in Big Valley somewhere. I searched everywhere. Ended up near Mount Sean, and my Mustang is bad in snow and faltered, and I fell. Devin is a poor choice,
Yeah, you could say the least.
and I actually don't even think her voice is attractive. Sloan, I get, right? I mean, you have an attractive voice. Devin, I don't know.
Jack wanted to fake marry me. Kimmer used to make jokes that he really wanted to marry me.
Zip tried to get me to be with Jack.
Yeah, I remember that. The poem.
I neither me or Jack was interested. I don't think. Which is almost insulting.
If somebody tries to force it, that's when Jack's not interested. He has to come
Hmm.
upon the people on his own.
So he chooses a woman that has already hurt people in his gang.
He has terrible choices in women. That's why I'm glad I'm not one of them.
Proves you're the good one, right? So what are you gonna do, Aurora? What do you want with your life? You don't really want to die in this war, do you?
I don't, but I'm not gonna just sit back either.
I understand that, but when does it end for you? When Jack says? When you're dead? When does it end for you?
When they stop coming after us.
They'll never stop. Even if it ends, there will always be a tenuous aggression, passive aggressiveness, and then the moment someone steps on a toe, it ignites all over again.
Honestly, we're at that with Summers right now. I was the one that got grabbed all the time with them because Fox wanted me.
You're just a very attractive woman, I guess. It's the
It's the
corset.
corset.
Yeah, I can't wear those things. But what do you want outside of war? You said you don't want to feel love or anything anymore, but I don't really believe that. I think the one thing you want most is to love and be loved truly. And I suppose you must know that the path you're walking now, it makes it difficult for you to find that.
This used to be a question Kramer would ask. Where do I see myself in 5 or 10 years? And I could never answer because I can't ever see past the guns coming at me all the time.
You're in a survival state. I mean, that's why you're doing the morphine, so you can survive physically and spiritually. But at the end of it, when the dust settles and the morphine, well, either hopefully doesn't kill you, but maybe you withdraw from it, you'll still remember. That's what I tell Zip. You may physically live through this war, but your spirit will never be the same. So the choices you make in the war, you need to be okay with. You need to think how they are going to resonate in your spirit and your soul. Because you may be surviving and acting impulsively, and it may, as you said, if you had gunned them down from the beginning, saved yourself or others, but would it really? Could you see yourself in 10 years after this war having children, having a daughter or a son, and loving them and knowing that the world is cruel and they may go through the very same things you did?
That's why I wouldn't want kids to bring them up in this life, this world.
I think I think you owe it to the world, because if you actually embrace the strength that I say you have, which is kindness, you will bestow that onto your children and they will bring kindness to the world, and will be one more person to say no, no, this is not right, either by law or by war. We need more people to just say no. I suppose my question is the same I asked Zip. When it settles and you survive, because in my future, you survive, Zip survives, how do you see yourself? Are you broken? Could you move on from everything that was done to you and then you did to others? Could you live with that every day? Have children and see the innocence and happiness in them, knowing what you may have done to others that couldn't have those children now?
So far, yes.
Mm.
If Zip had told me that Sissy was laying in a bed in Rhodes, I would have gone and shot her in the head right there.
Why?
One less person to come at us. One less chance of me or others getting shot and tortured.
Do you think that do you think that people can be swayed by words at all rather than violence?
I did, but not at the Chenzos. Their loyalties to their family. Nothing else matters.
I think they're scared. It's not loyalty, it's fear. Because if you're not with them, you're ultimately against them.
I
I
saw it
don't.
with Ben, too. When we hung out, he wasn't really in with them yet. He was
Mm.
just kind of associated with them. He. We just spend time talking about everything together. Once he became closer with them, and I also ended up with the Kettlemans, started turning into more trades of information. Like he wasn't his own person, he was always just an arm of theirs. And that's all that mattered. Like we'd talk about things, other groups, stuff like that. Then they'd try to pay me for information. It was kind of
It wasn't a
disgusting.
friendship. It's almost insulting.
Yeah. That's when I realized that all of them, they just do, once they become in there, they're just arms of the brothers.
Mm.
They're not their own person anymore. And they don't seem like they want to be either.
I don't think that they can. I don't think they're allowed. I mean, Carlo is. He is broken from what happened to him or what he sacrificed for the family. When I talked to him, he was kind. I'm sure I don't know everything. I'm sure he's capable of terrible things. Anyone is with the right motivation. And it is clear that he didn't care for the friendship as much as I did, but I did see something. But I think he was told no, honestly. He had Sloan following him around, he said, making sure he was okay and taking this medicine that helped stabilize his mood. And even when I offered him help, still, he said, Sloan will take care of me. I have to stay with her always in case something happens. And I said, so she's your babysitter. And he scoffed at that. He didn't like it, but it was true. He's a captive of his own family and he doesn't even realize it. And the more I talk to him and and give him an outside perspective, the more I assume when he tells them what I say, they say that I am a snake, that I am manipulative or turning him away.
See people who doesn't tell them what they want to hear as snakes.
Mm. That's the thing. Like I said, he thought that the conversation went a different way with Jabas. He expected that it did, and when I was honest that it didn't, he didn't believe me because he already had a predetermined answer in his head. And he tried to tell me, he said, I know you don't like Sloan, but if something happens to her, it is on your head and you will bear the consequences. And I took that as a threat because I said, it is not my fault that you have put yourself in a war. It is not my fault that she would be targeted. I do not have any information on a plan of her being kidnapped or tortured, if that is what you're asking.
You need to stay away from them.
I am.
Be careful, because can't tell you details, but I know some people are going after Sloan.
I'm fine with that. I don't want to know details anyway. But he did say, both in person and in a telegram, that if his family, specifically Sloan, was hurt, he would blame me. He said, "You can't blame me when I'm not even in the war, and I've told you I have no information."
They can't
It,
take ownership over fucking anything.
it's like, it's so frustrating because, of course, she's gonna fucking get hurt. Inevitably. You're in a war. And then to say, like, someone indiscriminately shot her. Oh, it must be Enola's fault.
You know, they try to say that they didn't hurt Effie and Nash. Jack did. It's Jack's fault they're dead. Can't take ownership over they're the ones that did it.
They pulled the trigger, didn't they not?
They did. But it's
There you go.
Jack's fault.
Because
They were friends with us. And when the Chenzos came out west, they would warn us if they saw them. So we could not just get caught out in the open.
I think Carlos told me in this last conversation I had with him, he said everyone says that they were friends with Effie and Nash, but Effie and Nash didn't even like Jack, is what he said
No,
to me.
Jack wasn't. Jack was close with Nash. Him and Effie had a lot of issues. But Effie and Nash were close with Pip and Allison Mills.
Hmm.
Mills was their next of kin.
And it's also ironic because Carlo, when I started talking to him, I would ask him before I met him, am I going to be safe? Because I knew my affiliation with my brothers would put me in a bad position. And he always told me, both in telegram and in person, my family is different. We do not involve those who are not involved in the war.
Bullshit.
And yet they, as far as I understand, struck down Effie and Nash for what? Giving information to Jack?
Warning us when they were hunting us in the west.
He made it sound like, he said they told Jack of our location where he could hunt us down and endangered the family. That is what he said.
Effie and Nash never left the west.
Hmm.
The only time they warned was any time they came out riding for us. And I don't know how you would expect anybody not to do that. If somebody you care about is being hunted and not warn them, why would you expect anybody to do anything different?
I agree.
Just like we go to the city, we know there's probably 30 people telegramming them everywhere we are.
Hmm.
We're not going after those people. They're doing. It's there. It's
They
the
just
city.
care.
If it's people they care about, I understand.
Or
If
that
they
are
were out there
subjugated.
actively spying, trying to give their locations to tell us, it'd be
Or
different.
riding with guns out, yes. So I think they're a very hypocritical family now that I've, suppose, experienced it a bit of myself.
They have
I
some sort of moral high ground they think they have.
remember when there was that scuffle in Valentine? You, Zip, and Ollie, I believe, were locked up.
Yeah.
They were acting like they were
We're
the
innocent?
civil. No, that. And they were on the porch. I was waiting on the porch as well because I had just arrived. I had gone to the tailor and saw you and my brothers being cuffed into the sheriff's office. So, of course, I went to inquire. So I was standing on the porch, and as I stood there, they stood in a group. Sloan, another man, two men, um, Olivia. They were they were acting like these bullies in the schoolyard, picking on how people dressed or how they looked, looking at them with binoculars, and then saying, "Oh, they're looking at us with binoculars. How dare they?" and they started an altercation with a man. It was the most bizarre thing because Rip came out to ask what I wanted. Before I could say, I whispered to him, "You might want to take care of what's on my left first. It seems there might be an altercation." Because they were literally just bullying strangers because they thought they were better than them.
Sounds like them. Do you know in that fight, I think it was Tony immediately choked out Zip, I choked out Sloan. Sloan got to walk, Zip didn't.
Why?
She wasn't involved.
How is she not involved?
Because she didn't get to throw a punch because I had her too quick. Same thing happened to Zip, but that didn't matter.
Is Sloane regarded highly by the law and
No.
medical? I don't
She's a
understand.
DiCenzo now, so they get a little extra pull.
I I don't understand it, but I do see the imbalances of it.
The law doesn't even know half of the things they do. They're better at hiding it because they're scared of the law. They don't want the law to see some of the things.
Oh, and they all look the fucking same.
Exactly, that's the other part. I can't even tell them apart.
I don't know who the fuck's who.
Us, it's obvious when we do something and we usually don't hide it. And we're also not going to go kill anybody that sees it and rats on us, especially if it's a civilian. It's what else do you expect them to do?
Yeah. I'm very disappointed in Carlo. I'm very disappointed in Zip.
Why?
Why for which one?
Both.
Carlo, because I thought he respected my position on things. I thought he would understand if I had always been honest, that I would always be honest. I thought that I was more than a tool because I had helped him genuinely. I thought that I shared things about myself and about other people, not information, but I shared about my mother, about how I was scared that I might become like her. And then when I saw the tendencies in him, it reminded me of her. That's why I was able to help him so efficiently. I tied him up 4 times, Aurora. And so I stayed by him. I tried to break through his psychosis. I think I almost got there. But then in our last conversation, there was no thank you. There was no appreciation. There was no. It was like the foundation of the friendship and the trust wasn't even there to begin with. Like it was built on sand and the wave just simply washed it away. It didn't matter to him the way it mattered to me. And it was hurtful because I defied everyone. Although I was honest with everyone and told them that yes, I was building a friendship with this man because I didn't want to paint him with the same brush because he was affiliated or a part of a family. I gave him that chance and I angered those who really cared about me. Zip, George, Jade, they were angry. Even the tribe, They were angry. They told me of all the terrible things the DiCenzos did to them individually and as a whole. And yet I still stood by him. I stuck up for him. I said he might be different. He deserves a chance. And I gave him that chance, and I am disappointed because he proved everyone right and I looked like an idiot. And for Zip, oh, go ahead.
I guess you can't just always assume everyone's going to be right. Got to learn it on your own.
Mm,
Doesn't mean everybody's going to be right about everything either.
mm. As for Zip, I'm disappointed because he thinks I am against him. He truly does. And I am on his side. I support him. I want him to be well. And although I clash with him, it is because I am trying to get him to self reflect, to see the goodness in him that I see, and to embrace it. And he refuses. I'm disappointed because I think he actively endangers me. He does not think. He was telling people to kidnap me, and when Ollie and I confronted him, he hadn't told Ollie the part where he had paid someone to not only kidnap me, but when he paid this person, the person said, I have ways of getting information and I will employ them on your sister, which to me insinuates torture. So he knowingly paid a stranger to kidnap and possibly harm me. And for what? Because I told him if he hurt Sissy, he might not recover. Because I told him to think again about his path. Because I wanted him to want more for himself than simple revenge and war, because I wanted him to see a future and a happiness. And then he tells Jabast that I am friends with a DiCenzo. And lucky for me, Jabast didn't give a fuck, but still, you know how it is. Who you know apparently defines who you are. So I am disappointed that he thinks that I am his enemy and then endangers me constantly. You know what he did when Ollie and I were confronting him? Even Ollie asked him what he wanted besides revenge, because when I asked him what revenge gave him, if he felt any better, he said no. And I said, okay. And Ollie said, what do you want? Do you want money? He said, no. And Ollie said, do you want love? He said, no. And Ollie said, do you want family? And he even said no to that. And Ollie was like, what do you want then? And Zip said, I want to kill them all. And when we challenged him on this, he said that it was easier to do terrible things than it was to want something for himself. And when we continued to push him, he literally threw himself from a small cliff in Strawberry just to discontinue the conversation. And he wonders why I have disconnected from him.
He has a very narrow minded view of things. He sees things the way he wants to and can't open his eyes to other views. You and him think very differently, and he can't see that.
He thinks I don't understand, and maybe I won't ever fully, but I think I understand enough to realize why he joined Kettleman. I know why. He wanted to be part of something. He wanted to feel like he belonged and was valued and cared for because he never had that when we were growing up. He didn't, and I get it. But he also doesn't take responsibilities for his own actions, nor does he think about the repercussions of them.
He only
And
thinks about what's in front of him.
mhm, he doesn't think about how his words or his actions actually reflect. But he does care. I see that in him. But I really don't think he understands me at all.
I think he's going through a lot himself and he doesn't know how to see past that as well.
Mm. It is sad to watch someone have to struggle, be hurt, to really be forged into something great. And I think that you should see that for yourself too. Everything that you are suffering now is for a purpose. You may suffer now, but you won't suffer always. Just do not let the world tell you how you need to be. Do not change because it pressures you to be so.
Surprisingly enough, I talked to Jack last night. He sort of said the same thing. That being soft would be cowering at our enemies, not being compassionate and sometimes letting people go.
Mm-hmm. You know, the whole Marquis situation, I learned a lot from that. I had always told myself that being hurt by words was a silly thing to do. And to be fair, I reacted because I suppose I was told to stand up for myself, have a backbone. And that meant don't let anyone push you around. If you don't like what they're saying, tell them. And if they continue to say it, do something. And so I did. It didn't obviously work out, but I'll tell you a secret. Before Marquis was stabbed, George came to me and he asked permission to do it. And I told him, I will not say yes and I will not say no. Because if I say yes, that means that I am permitting violence. And to be honest, it was my fault. I started the fight and I got what I got. I learned my lesson and I can live with that. And I won't tell you no because you, as someone that loves and protects me, you have to do what you need to do to be settled with that in your soul. And when he came back from London last night, we spoke briefly about that. And he told me, after it was all said and done, it's not that he regretted stabbing Marquis, but he realized that he didn't feel better afterwards either. What had happened to me had still happened, and then it just caused more issues after that. So it really didn't improve or make anything worthwhile or valuable. And so I think being compassionate and learning from mistakes is very important. I'm actually surprised that Jack said that compassion is a value, but I guess I've never really talked to the man.
I know, before I met him, I only heard the stories. And he has done horrible things. But that's not all he is.
No one is defined by a moment or an action. Just like a day cannot simply be bad because one bad thing happens, there is endless opportunity for it to change. Just like your life, you may do a bad thing for a long time, but if there is opportunity to learn and change, then that bad thing is but a step in forging a great thing. And to be a great thing, you, as I said, sometimes have to suffer.
You know, Rabbit used to be one of the kettlemen.
I've heard, yes.
Do you know why she left?
No.
When Jack burned Isabella, she was in love with her. It's what broke her.
He burned someone she loved.
He didn't know. She never told anybody. Until she told me. I don't know if she knew at the time.
Sometimes you don't know the value of someone until they're gone, I suppose, or hurt. Till you're afraid they are gone.
Yeah.
Did you read my book by chance?
Not yet, no. Perspective is not always the truth. Cruelty springs from weakness. I like the way she writes. You will always be controlled by the one that makes you angry. That's so true.
If the words bring you any kind of peace or resonate at all, you can keep it. Read it back when you feel that you are lost.
You have such a unique perspective of things.
I think it's because of my native parents raised me. It was just us. They seemed distant at times. They. I'm still trying to figure it out, I suppose. The depth of how much they cared. They were very unique. And they were Apache, which is a warrior tribe, and I assume because they were trying to find sanctuary here in Wapiti, which is why we traveled for so long, I assume something happened to their people, to their village. That was probably traumatic. They never really talked about it. I one time heard them speaking about a flames, and I was young and half asleep, so I assume I assume it was some sort of raid, either by another tribe or outsiders, if you will. But that never stopped them. Yes, my father was a warrior, but my mother was a medicine woman. That's actually the reason they died. We stopped in towns very rarely, but when we did, she would assist those that were sick. And when we were almost here, maybe 3 days away, they came down with a fever. After we had visited a town, I assume they picked up some sort of illness and they passed away. That's actually why I ended up here. Not because I knew Zip and Ollie were here. Of course, I had always stopped to ask in town when we would stop in towns, but I came here to continue their journey, and my ultimate goal was to be part of a tribe here, to honor them. And I have been offered to be part of a tribe now 3 times, and I have refused because that was their path, not mine. And I feel like if I commit to a group of people, then I pick a side. But I think maybe you should keep that, think on it. And you can keep it on your person too, because even if someone takes the book, there's no information. And maybe if they take it, they can have some fucking perspective too. Like I said, I won't pressure you to stop doing the bad habits you are doing, but I hope that you will make a decision for yourself that you feel is best for you. Also, my native name is Nayeli. It translates to I love you. Mm-hmm. Birth mother named me alone backwards, and my native mother named me Nayeli, which is I love you. Very different paths. But I think you understand sometimes when you love, you end up very much alone. Well, thank you for talking with me. And if you do need to talk anytime, I'm here. And if you need any medical, you know how to reach me. In regards to Zip, if he talks poorly of me,
He never
I
does.
I understand if he would, but do tell him that I do love him.
He's just a bit dramatic and thinks everybody hates him once they aren't talking
Mm,
to him all the time.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna lay my head down for a moment here and
Okay.
then go into town, cook, and I need to get a whole bunch of sticks. So we'll be around Valentine.
Okay. I'll see you around, Enola.
Yeah, be safe.
That was a good talk.